Alright, hello. This video is for lesson 5.1, day 6 online task. It's task 2 virtual lab, classical genetics. So this video will show up right here on slide 19, but the link to the website is over here on the documents. Alright, so let's click open this up, and luckily there is no flash to allow or anything on here. All right, so the instructions say to, in the top right-hand corner, click on concept 1, and that's already clicked on for you. And then it says click on 2 on animation. And so if you click on here, that'll take you where you need to be. So you're going to read the text here and answer some of the questions. So it says, hello, I'm Gregor Mendel. I worked with pea plants because they are easy to grow and they have many traits that distinguish strains of pea plants from each other. The trait could also be tracked from one generation to the next. And so it says, why did Mendel choose pea plants to work for his work? Well, he says because it's easy to use. It says they're easy to grow. And he said they have many traits that distinguish strains of pea plants from each other. So they're easy to distinguish. They have traits that are easy to distinguish. And then lastly, he says traits can be tracked from one generation to the next. So it's easy to track their traits from one generation to the next. All right, so then it says step 3, click on the arrow next button in the right hand corner, so that's right here, to go to the next slide. All right, so I'm going to read these, then we're going to try to answer this question. Let's read the question first. It says, describe in your own words how Mendel was able to cross-fertilize his plants. So, when left alone, pea flowers self-fertilize. So here's an immature flower, so let's look inside. There's the stamen here. It says the stamen, the male sex parts, mature first and drop pollen inside the immature flower. Okay, so these little stamens, they drop the pollen in. The pistil, the female sex part, matures later. Its eggs are fertilized by the pollen that lands on the pistil. So the stamen drops the pollen on the pistil, and that's how the eggs get fertilized. All right, here's a mature flower. It says the pistil, the female sex part, matures later. Oh, I read this. All right. To cross-fertilize pea plants, I open the immature flower. Okay, so here we go. So describe in your own words how Mendel was able to cross-fertilize his plants. So he opened the immature flower. What do we do next? Then he cut off the stamens before they matured and dropped pollen. All right. What do we do next? After the flower matured, I dusted its pistil with pollen from another plant. This is cross-fertilization. So then after the flower matured, he dusted its pistil, that's the female part, with pollen from another plant. We call that cross-fertilization. And there it shows him dusting it, taking it from the one to the next. And that's it for this question. All right, next it says click on bio and learn more about Mendel. So up here, click on the bio. And we're going to read and fill in the blanks. Johann Gregor Mendel is often called the blank of blanks. Let's see if we can find that. Johann Georg Mendel, 1822 to 1884, the father of genetics. Georg Mendel, through his work on pea plants, discovered the fundamental laws of inheritance. He deduced that genes come in pairs and are inherited as distinct units, one from each parent. So that's one allele from each parent. Mendel tracked the segregation of parental genes and their appearance in the offspring as dominant or recessive traits. He recognized the mathematical patterns of inheritance from one generation to the next. Mendel's laws of heredity are usually stated as the law of segregation. Each inherited trait is defined by a gene pair. Parental genes are randomly separated to the sex cells, so the sex cells contain only one gene of the pair. Offspring therefore inherit one genetic allele from each parent when the sex cells unite in fertilization. The law of independent assortment: genes for different traits are sorted separately from one another, so that the inheritance of the trait is not dependent of the inheritance of another. The law of dominance: an organism with alternative forms of genes will express the form that is dominant. The genetic experiment of Mendel did with pea plants took him 8 years, from 1856 to 1863, and he published his results in 1865. During this time, Mendel grew over 10,000 pea plants, keeping track of progeny numbers and type. Mendel worked, and his law of inheritance were not appreciated in his time. It was not until 1900s, after the rediscovery of his laws, then that his experimental results were understood. So, Johann Georg Mendel is often called, and this said it right up here, the father of genetics. So I'm going to type that in here. All right, through his work with pea plants, Mendel discovered the basic laws of, and here it is, laws of heredity. And was able to recognize the mathematical blank, blank, blank from one generation to the next. All right, I found that right here, the mathematical patterns of inheritance from one generation to the next. So here, mathematical pattern of inheritance from one generation to the next. Mendel's laws of heredity are known as, and we're just going to copy and paste these over here. So Control C, and then if you paste without formatting, it'll make it into red, which is what I need, or you can click Control Shift V. So the law of segregation, copy, Control Shift V, paste. The law of independent assortment, and the last one, the law of dominance. Control Shift V. All right, next is concept 2, genes come in pairs. So it says in the top right-hand corner, click on concept 2, genes come in pairs. And you can find that up here. All right, it says step 2, click on animation. Step 3, click on the arrows down here in the bottom right-hand corner and continue through the animation. Read the text and answer the questions. What is a phenotype? All right, well, let's start reading this here. Peas have distinctive traits that are inherited in predictable ways. Each visible trait is called a phenotype. Let me show you the traits I worked with. So, what is a phenotype? Another word for it is trait. All right, what are the phenotypes of pod color? So let's go to the next page. All right. So we have flower position, it could be top or bottom. These are the stem and flower traits. Stem length, tall and short. Pod traits. So you can either have pod shape, puffed or pinched, or pod color, green or yellow. So it's asking for what are the phenotypes of pea color, so it'd be green or yellow. All right, what are the phenotypes of seed shape? And that's right. That's pod shape. So let's go to the next one. Here we go. Seed shape, round or wrinkled. All right, in the experiment, Mendel explains to you he tests seed blank. Green seeds and yellow seeds are called blank. All right, so he says these are seed traits. Let's go to the next slide. Here are the 7 traits altogether. Each trait has 2 phenotypes. All right. Let's focus on one of these traits. I purchased purebred seeds for my experiments. So he's got green seeds and yellow seeds. So in the experiment, Mendel explains to you he tests seed blank. Green seeds and yellow seeds are called blank. So he's testing the seed color. And the green and yellow, is that the trait or the phenotype? So each trait has 2 phenotypes. The green and yellow are the phenotypes. All right. Let's read this before we read the lab. Each form of a gene is called an blank, and a pair of the allele written together is called a blank. Okay, this is back here. So each form of a gene is called the trait, and the pair of alleles written together is called a phenotype. All right, what is the genotype of a purebred green seed? So let's see if we can figure that out. Clicking next. All right, each harvest, farmers would keep some of their pea crop to use as seeds for the following year. These seeds came from pea plants, regular habit of self-fertilization. This is how purebred strains came about. In the case of seed color, one strain had only green seeds, the other only had yellow seeds. Okay. I reason that traits like seed color are controlled by one gene which has a green form and a yellow form. Each form is called an allele. The pair of alleles is called a genotype. Oh, see, I did this wrong here. Each form of gene is called an allele. I'll fix that. And the pair of alleles written together is called the genotype. All right. So what is the genotype of a purebred green seed? Well, it's going to be 2 lowercase y's. All right. All right, the next section here is concept 3, genes don't blend. So it says here, click on concept 3, genes don't blend, read the text and answer the question. So it is up here, concept 3, genes don't blend. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to read this and answer the question. The question is, how are genes unlike paint? So in general, offspring appear to be a mixture of parental characteristics. However, Mendel found that this is not true for the pea plant traits that he chose to study. Purebred pea plants, when crossed, did not produce offspring with blended traits. For example, one might expect that a cross between a purebred green-seeded and a purebred yellow-seeded pea plant would produce offspring with seeds of an intermediate color that is a greenish yellow. After all, color blending happens when paint is mixed together. However, Mendel found that this cross produced offspring with only one color, yellow. No intermediate blends were seen, and the green color seemed to have disappeared. All right, so how are genes unlike plants? Well, for pea pods, they don't mix. It is one or the other, green or yellow. I will learn later on that sometimes there are genetic mixes where it is a blend of both. All right, the next section is concept 4. Some genes are dominant. So step 1, on the top right-hand corner, click on concept 4, some genes are dominant. Then we're going to go and click on animation. And we're going to scroll through by clicking on the arrow in the bottom right-hand corner. Read the text and answer the questions. All right, when Mendel crossed purebred yellow peas with purebred green peas, what happened? All right, so let's read this over here. So I crossbred purebred green peas with purebred yellow peas. Since yellow is dominant to green, all the offspring were yellow. The green phenotype had disappeared. I allowed the yellow pea plants to self-fertilize to see what the second generation would look like. So when Mendel crossed purebred yellow peas with purebred green peas, what happened? Well, all the offspring was yellow. And that happened because yellow was dominant to green. All right, question 2. What is the genotype of the offspring that results from the cross between a purebred green plant and a purebred yellow plant? Well, let's see. All right, I don't think they're going to answer it quite yet. Some of the second generation offspring were green. After performing many experiments, I figured out that the basic rules of inheritance and why the green color reappeared. The results of these experiments showed that the pea color is controlled by one gene, which is a green form and a yellow form. Each form is called an allele. If we suppose that a purebred green seed plant has two green alleles, YY, and the purebred yellow seed plant has two yellow alleles, Y, we can diagram these plants like this. So this green one says, I'm homozygous. I have two green alleles. This one says, I'm homozygous. I have two yellow alleles. When a purebred plant is crossed with a purebred yellow plant, the offspring inherit one allele of color gene from each parent. All right, and here's the four crosses. We're heterozygous. We have one yellow and one green allele. So plants with two different alleles of a gene are heterozygous. So it says, what is the genotype of the offspring that resulted from the cross between a purebred green and a purebred yellow? So here's a purebred green on the left, purebred yellow. All of these have the genotype of capital Y, lowercase y. All right, these plants are blank because they have one yellow allele and one green allele. There it is, heterozygous. Or the other was homozygous. Homo means same, hetero means different. So capital and lowercase, they're different from each other. So these are heterozygous. These can be yellow if they have two blank alleles or one blank and one blank allele. So yellow, if they have two capital Y's, or they have one capital Y and one lowercase y. Green peas must blank copies of the green. All right, well, let's keep going. Since the heterozygous offspring are yellow, then the yellow allele must be dominant over the recessive green allele. The green allele didn't disappear. Its effect is not seen in heterozygotes. Peas are yellow when they have either two yellow alleles or one yellow allele and one green allele. Oh yeah, that's what it said here. All right, so two yellow alleles and one yellow and one green. And the yellow allele was capital Y, and yellow was capital Y, and green here was lowercase y. All right, next slide. Green peas must have two copies of the recessive green allele. All right, so green peas must have, here we go, two copies of the green allele. All right, question 5. What are the possible genotypes of offspring when you cross two heterozygous plants? Now let's see how the genes sort out when we cross two heterozygous plants. Oh, perfect. All right, let's click again. All right, so the possible genotypes are lowercase y, capital Y, lowercase y, capital Y, lowercase y, and capital Y, capital Y. All right, question 6, it says, most of the offspring will be blank in color, but green blank reappears in this generation. In this case, the yellow phenotype is blank and the green phenotype is blank. All right, so when two heterozygous plants are crossed, the resulting progeny mostly shows the dominant phenotype, but the recessive phenotype reappears. So most of the offspring will be yellow in color, but the green recessive phenotype reappears in this generation. In this case, the yellow phenotype is dominant, the green phenotype is recessive. All right, and the last thing you're gonna do is the wrap up. So that concludes this video. If you have any questions, please ask your teacher.